Celestisynth got a massive update, and today I'm gonna show you everything you need to know to craft the weapons, armor, and everything from this mod. But before going into how to craft these weapons and how to use them, we're gonna check where we can get all of these ingredients to craft the weapons and armor. And one of the core ingredient is the Celestial Core. To craft a Celestial Core, you need 4 Amethyst Shard, a Heart of the Sea, a Nether Star, or an Ender Crystal, and you'll get 1 Celestial Core. 1 coal will smelt about 2 core, and once they are heated, you can dupe them with Amethyst Shard, and you'll get another Celestial Core. Be careful when you hold a Celestial Core, cause you will be set on fire. One trick I found is to stay in water while you craft with the Celestial Core. Another really useful ingredient will be the Super Null Netherite Ingot. And let me tell you, you're gonna need a lot of Netherite with this mod, because to craft a Super Null Netherite Ingot, you will need a Netherite Ingot, of course, a Celestial Core or a gas tier, and a smithing template. Some crafting recipe will require you to smelt it to create a Celestial Netherite Ingot. 1 coal will give about 1.5 Celestial Netherite Ingots, so you better put more than 1 coal or you'll just waste energy. Now, moving on to the core ore of the mod, you'll find in your world 4 new landmark. That is the Winterite Spike, Zephyr Deposit, Lunar Stone, and the Solar Crater. First of all, the Winterite Spike can only be found underground below Y0 in a cold biome. Mining them with a diamond pickaxe and above will yield a Winterish Shard, and it can be fortuned. The Zephyr Deposit will be another spike-like structure, but this one can only be mined with a netherite pickaxe or above and will yield the Zephyr Deposit itself. You don't need Silk Touch to get the block. The Lunar Stone can be found in a crater deep underground. It will be mixed with Lapis Lazuli. Mining the block will result into a Lunar Stone that then can be smelted into Lunar Scrap, and Lunar Scrap can be brewed with a Phantom Membrane into a Starstruck Scrap. And finally, Solar Crystal will be found in Solar Crater randomly in the Nether. You can also find Solar Crystal in the Nether Fortress chest. The 2 next item can be crafted with vanilla items. The Abomination can be crafted with Blaze Powder and 4 Eyes of Ender, and the Starstruck's Feather can be brewed with a feather and a Phantom Membrane. So you don't put a potion in the potion slot, you just put the Phantom Membrane, and the Phantom Membrane will become the Starstruck Feather. And finally, there's the only mob in the mod, the Traverser, that drops the Crimson Piece. These guys can be found spawning from Monolith inside Nether Fortress. So it's an entity-like spawner that can produce these guys, but beware, cause the monolith itself can attack back. You can also find these Celestial Monolith glowing blue underground, and you can turn them to blood with Nether Wart or Crimson Piece. And these guys will now spawn the Traverser. And now that we've got all the ingredients to craft the weapons and armor, let's go see the armor first, cause these are the easiest one you can get before getting the weapons. There's 2 sets of armor, the Solar Crystal armor and the Lunar Stone armor. The Solar armor can be crafted with Solar Crystal and a gold block for each piece of armor. These pieces of armor gives a lot of stuff, including armor, mana if you have Iron Spell and Spellbook, damage reduction from the Celestial Weapon, armor toughness, Celestial Weapon damage, and fire magic resistance if you have Iron Spell and Spellbook. As far as I know, there is no set bonus if you have the whole set. In my opinion, the armor looks okay. It's not the prettiest I've ever seen, but it does a really good job. Then the Lunar Stone armor is crafted with Lunar Stone, not smelted, and gives pretty much the same thing, except that instead of fire reduction, you get insane knockback reduction. You will never move with that. The Lunar Stone also gives a bit more armor and damage reduction, but the Solar Crystal gives a bit more damage. So one has more defense and the other has more attack. Now, for the weapons, you will need to craft a Starlit Factory. This special 3-block wide crafting station can be crafted with 2 Celestial Netherite Ingot, a block of iron, crafting table, smithing template, blast furnace, and 3 pieces of obsidian. If you played previous version, there was something here called the Celestial Workbench. It is not used anymore. If you right click, it's gonna say that it's no longer usable, but it's not wasted because you can turn it back into a started factory instantly. The started factory doesn't seem to have any tool associated, so if you place it, it's gonna take a million years to just mine and will probably not drop itself. It's probably a bug. I hope it gets fixed. Now, the started factory has a really pretty UI that can be quite confusing if you don't understand what the heck this is. First of all, this needs power. To power the started factory, you can either use an Amethyst Shard, a Celestial Core, or a heated Celestial Core. Each item says how much fuel it gives, but the most efficient way is to dupe the heated Celestial Core into Celestial Core, because you only need 4 shard with a Celestial Core to make a normal one, and it gives 105 fuel amount compared to the weak 5 of the amethyst shard. So don't use pure amethyst shard unless you have like an infinite form. Once you place your fuel in the fuel tank, it's gonna take some time to smelt and be turned into raw energy. And we also have a really good tip at the bottom here. I suggest that you wait for the power to be full before starting to craft your weapons. Alright, it's full. Now let's go quickly through each crafting recipe for these weapons. To craft the Solaris, you will need 2 crawler crystal, 1 supernal netherite ingot, an iron sword, a fire charge, and a blaze rod. When you place all of this in the required slot, the factory will start to work. It's gonna take some time, it's gonna deplete the fuel, it's gonna make a sound, shake like crazy, and after a while, you will get your weapon. So to craft the Crescentia, you need 2 learner scrap, 1 supernal netherite ingot, 1 trident, 2 iron ingot. To craft the poltergeist, you need 2 abomination, 1 supernal netherite ingot, 2 anvil, and an iron axe. To craft the aqua flora, you will need any flower, a lily pad, a supernal netherite ingot, and each of the frog light. To craft the rainfall serenity, you will need 1 starstruck scrap, 1 bow, a celestial netherite ingot, 2 starstruck feather, and another starstruck scrap. To craft the Frostbound, you will need a diamond hoe, a winter race shard, a supernal netherite ingot, 1 winter race shard, a blue ice, and a packed ice. And finally, to craft the strongest weapon in the mod, the Karat, you will need 2 crimson piece, a celestial netherite ingot, 2 netherite ingot, and a ward block. And now that we've seen how to craft these weapons, I'm gonna show you how to use them. Now, each weapon has its own passive and skills that you can see by hovering over it. If you want to know the passive or the active skill, you can press Ctrl or Shift to swap between passive and skills. And to read each passive or skill, you can use your mouse wheel. So starting with Solaris, the first passive is Ember's Blessing. You gain fire immunity while you're holding the item, and you set enemy on fire for a few seconds. Then you have the Solar Bomb formation. If you hold right-click button with Solaris, you can summon up to 5 solar bombs that will circle around them, hurting the target and redirect a solar bomb through them. For the skill, you have the Spinning Flame. If you right-click, you will spin around you, dealing damage to enemies, and if you crouch and right-click, you will dash forward in a blue fire, igniting the enemies in your path. Now for Crescentia. When you're holding the item, you gain a level of damage resistance, and normal attacks with this item will slow down the targets for a few seconds. By right-clicking, you will create the Lunar Celebration Barrage that will unleash a dazzling barrage of strike on nearby enemies accompanied by a mesmerizing firework display. And if you right-click while crouching, you will unleash a set of dragon-like projectiles, dragging enemies along with it whilst continuously slashing them. And be careful with this one because it grieves the terrain. What's happening to my head? Anyway, the Breezebreaker has the Agile passive, which lets the player make a huge jump in the air and ignoring fall damage. But you take 2.3 times more damage from all other damage source. Then every skill cast, it will activate or deactivate this passive. While active, the player gain a speed boost and reduce skill cooldown by half. The effect wears off after 8 seconds. And we have 5 skills for this one. The Gale Storm unleashes a powerful wind slash that inflicts tremendous amount of damage. So this is just a right click. If you hold right click for at least half a second or more, you're gonna do a dual Gale Storm. So you will do 2 slices consecutively instead of 1. If you hold crouch while right clicking, you will summon a tornado. It will slice through any enemies on its path. Also, the tornado shoots where you look at, so don't look at the ground while you do it, or it will just do nothing. If you right-click while sprinting, you will dash forward, inflicting damage to the first entity you encounter along the way. I somehow cannot do the dash one, so maybe this one is bugged, but I cannot do any damage. And finally, if you right-click while mid-air, you will do a vertical swing, hitting everything in front of you and below you. Now the Poltergeist only has one passive and is the Phantom tag. All skills from this weapon tags every affected entities with a Phantom tag. Slain foes with the tag become monstrous aberrant that draws in nearby enemies for 5 seconds. And if you right-click with the Poltergeist, you will execute a smash to the ground, dealing a massive burst of damage on surrounding entities. After 10 consecutive strikes, the weapon enables its aberrant form, allowing the next strike to enlarge and mutate a sucking aberrant from the ground, killing an entity during the aberrant form, or jumping midair while striking an entity, reset the cooldown of this ability. And if you right-click while holding crouch, you will create a projective barrier capable of shattering any incoming projectile, while propelling you backward. Now for the Aquaflora, every skill cast gives 3 seconds of speed to the caster. The Aquaflora has 2 forms. In the normal form, if you right-click, you will launch a series of attacks in front of you. If you crouch and right-click, you will do a headbutt, and also turning your weapon into the blooming state. During the blooming state, if you right-click near an entity, you will gain immunity I need a bigger mod than that. You will gain damage immunity and will do 20 strikes to the target. These targets will do around 50-45 damage, but you can dual wield both weapon and you will do twice as much attack. And if finally, if you crouch and right click, you will turn your weapon back into its normal state, also dealing damage to the entity in front of you. The Rainfall Serenity is a bow that has no passive, but if you charge this bow and you shoot through enemy, it's gonna pass through every single one of them, marking them with the Quasar mark for 5 seconds. And this mark can trigger nearby entities to shoot laser at the marked target. And when the lasers strike a target with a Quasar mark, a portal will spawn above the laser and will rain down around the target. If you hold right click while holding crouch, it will increase your speed massively and you will become truly invisible for 5 seconds. And dropping this weapon into a solid platform will transform this weapon into a turret that shoots anything nearby. To grab the turret back, all you need to do is crouch and right click. The Frostbound has a passive called Whispering Cold, which inflicting harm upon the target induce a Frostbound condition, significantly diminishing their strength and reducing their speed. If you right-click with the Frostbound, you will start the Dance of the 7,000 Snowflakes, execute a rhythmic movement sequence that inflicts damage on nearby entities multiple times, afflicting them with a Frostbound effect. And if you right-click while holding crouch, you will do the Calamity Frost cast, which calls for a maximum of 5 sizable ice formation right in front of the caster, causing damage to entities and bestowing upon them the Frostbound effect. And finally, we have the Karat. This is the most destructive weapon in the game, so beware, it can and will grief if you're not careful. But this one has 3 passive entry ability. The first passive is the Hellbend sequence. After consecutively attacking target 5 times in a row, the holder activates the Hellbend state, which increases the Karat's lifesteal and repeatedly eject homing shadow projectile towards nearby enemy. When you're using the Karat to cast a skill, the holder sacrifices 1.5 health every few seconds, but every single skill regenerates the holder's health to some degree when it lands on a target. And finally, the Cursebane Affliction. When a skill hits a target, it gives Cursebane effect to the target for 5 seconds. The effect reduces the healing rate of the target significantly. Now for the skills, we have the Blood Red Severity. If you right-click, you send waves of slashes that bypass armor. The amount of slash is proportional to the degree of blood sacrifice. So the longer you hold it, the more slash you will do. If you right-click while holding crouch, you will jump to a location and send a shockwave to the surroundings. The jumping distance is proportional to the degree of the blood sacrifice. And finally, the most destructive skill in the game, the Abolishment of Sinners. Send out a giant wren that erases blocks and deal massive damage to targets along the way. You have to hold right-click for 10 or more seconds. And there we go. If you let go, this is what you get. It creates lava, it's tearing through the ground, and it deals a lot of damage. There's only one last thing I'm gonna add. If you dual wield some weapon, you can add more than one effect at the same time. There's also another bypass with Aquaflora. If you start your ability, press F to swap weapon, you can now scroll through your inventory and use other weapon while using both Aquaflora. Let's do that again. And then Crescentia. So that's a nice skill trick that you can do with multiple weapons. So I think I covered everything with the Celestisynth. If you want to see me destroy buildings for fun with the Karat, you can head now to my second channel where I'm gonna go ham on some modded structure. So I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. If you have some suggestion or question, leave them in the comments below. And as always, you're awesome. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.